The evil design of Auschwitz. In June 1944, a train from Budapest grinds to a halt inside Auschwitz-Birkenau. The doors slide open. Thousands pour out. They don't know where they are. They only know the smell: smoke, ash, and something else they can't name. An SS doctor inspects the arrivals. A flick of his thumb decides who lives and who dies. Left, forced labor. Right, the gas chamber. Most go right. On this day, over 80% are sent to their deaths within hours. Among them is a 16-year-old boy. Let's call him Viktor. He arrives with his father, the last of their family. A few days ago, he was in school. Now he stands on a platform surrounded by strangers. He doesn't know it yet, but his old life is over. Viktor watches as prisoners ahead of him are stripped of their clothes, their hair, their names. He remembers a phrase he will later write: "We were nothing but numbers. I became 174517. My old name was erased." Auschwitz-Birkenau was not designed by accident. Every building, every road, every fence was engineered for one purpose: to kill as efficiently as possible. The railway runs directly through the camp gates. The gas chambers are disguised as shower rooms. The crematoria are attached to them. The selection was pseudo-scientific. Doctors in white coats, not soldiers, decided who lived. It was theater. Most of those sent to the right were not sick or weak. They were simply not needed for work. Viktor watches Thomas, who used to race him home from school, walk to the right. The doctor flicks his thumb. Viktor and his father are sent left. They don't know yet that left is not a reprieve. It is just a slower death. That night, Viktor hears men in the barracks telling jokes. "The chimney," they say. He went up the chimney. It takes him a moment to understand. They are talking about the crematoria. Viktor would later write, "We learned to joke about death. It was the only way to survive." In the sauna, the reception building, Viktor is stripped, shaved, disinfected. A needle pierces his arm. A number is stamped into his skin. He looks at his reflection in a puddle of water. He no longer recognizes himself. The gas chambers were the heart of the machine. They were designed to look like showers to prevent panic. Prisoners were told to undress, to remember where they hung their clothes, to prepare for soap and water. Instead, Zyklon B pellets dropped through vents in the ceiling. It took 15 to 20 minutes to kill everyone inside. The bodies turned pink and blue. They were piled at the doors, clawing for air. Then, the Sonderkommando, prisoners forced to do the work, dragged them to the crematoria. The crematoria could burn 1,440 bodies per day. The smoke rose constantly. Viktor remembers the smell. He says, "It was always there. Even when you stopped noticing it, it was there. You never forgot what it meant." Viktor learns to stop reacting. The first time he sees a body, he freezes. The second time, he flinches. By the 10th time, he walks past. He will later write, "I did not want to become numb, but numbness was the price of survival." Not everyone in Auschwitz was killed immediately. Thousands were selected for slave labor. The largest camp, Auschwitz III-Monowitz, was built to serve IG Farben, a German chemical company. Prisoners worked 12-hour shifts building synthetic rubber and fuel. Viktor works in Monowitz. He carries 50-kilo sacks of raw materials from train cars to conveyor belts. If he slows down, he is beaten. If he falls, he is left to die. He watches 2 men collapse in one morning. No one helps them. No one can. Food is a bowl of watery soup with rotten turnips and a piece of bread. Viktor later writes, "A man could sell his last shirt for a bowl of soup. The value of bread was higher than the value of a human life." He sees two prisoners fight over a crust that fell from a cart. One of them dies. Viktor's father is assigned to a work group laying railway tracks. One day, someone tries to escape. The guards shoot him. Then they beat everyone else. Viktor's father can barely walk. He tells Viktor he is fine. Viktor knows he is not. Viktor notices a man in the corner of his barrack. He doesn't speak. He doesn't eat. He just sits, staring at the wall, rocking slightly. The other prisoners call him Musulman, a Muslim. It is their word for those who have lost the will to live. Viktor later writes, "He stopped smoking. A week later, he was dead." Viktor realizes he is becoming like that man. He no longer dreams of home. He no longer imagines the future. He thinks only of the next bowl of soup, the next hour of sleep. He asks himself, "Am I still a person? Or am I already dead?" One morning, Viktor's father collapses in the mud. He is still breathing, barely. Viktor kneels beside him. A guard shouts at him to move. Viktor does not move. The guard beats him. He still does not move. Then another guard signals. His father is taken to the crematorium. Viktor never sees him again. That night, Viktor wants to give up. He lies on his bunk and stares at the ceiling. Then he remembers something. He will later write, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances." He decides to survive, not for himself, for his father, for the others who can't. Viktor begins to see his suffering differently. He will later write, "Suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment it finds a meaning." He decides that if he survives, he will tell the world what happened here. Every minute of pain now has a purpose. He finds small ways to stay human. He shares his bread with a sick prisoner. He plays chess on a board scratched into the dirt. He listens to the camp orchestra, a group of women forced to play music as prisoners march to work. One day, a girl playing the flute smiles at him. He smiles back. For a moment, he is not in Auschwitz. He is just a boy. By late 1944, the Soviet army is advancing. The Nazis begin to dismantle the camps. Gas chambers are blown up. Documents are burned. Prisoners are forced on death marches away from the front. Viktor is one of them. Viktor marches 250 kilometers through the winter. He watches men freeze to death on the side of the road. He watches guards shoot anyone who can't keep up. His body is failing. His mind is slipping. He collapses in the snow. He hears a shot. He thinks it's for him. But the shot is different. It comes from a Russian rifle. Soviet soldiers walk past him. They are looking for Germans. Viktor is free. He does not celebrate. He later writes, "We were not happy. We were empty. We had lost the ability to feel." Between 1940 and 1945, 1.1 million people were sent to Auschwitz. Over 900,000 were murdered. Viktor survived. He spent the rest of his life writing about what he saw. He became a psychiatrist. He helped others find meaning in their suffering. But he never forgot the number on his arm. Auschwitz was not a mistake. It was not madness. It was a machine, designed by engineers, operated by bureaucrats, protected by soldiers. It was evil, but it was also ordinary. That is the lesson. That is the warning. Beyond the map.